Are you ready to find out what you should definitely do as a social media virtual assistant? In this video, I'm going to dive through the best ways that you can work with a client, especially as a social media virtual assistant. And if you guys are just starting out. Now, the first thing is to do a full audit. And what the full audit is knowing what your client's current baseline is like. What that means is what are the current analytics in the last maybe month. It doesn't have to be that you go back through a year, but looking through the recent kind of posts that they've done, if they've done any posts at all, and looking at what are their baseline engagement, what are their baseline impressions, what is the baseline when it comes to if they're running ads, what are those numbers like. A lot of time we get so excited on getting started with a client that we want to impress them in the best way, right? But if you don't know the baseline, if you don't know where you're getting started, it's going to be hard for you to show up what your results are, and it'll be harder for you to convince them to kind of keep you on. So know the baseline, do a full audit of what are the things that they currently have, their assets, their current numbers, what they're focused on, what they're doing, and their own goals as well. Next is getting their preferences. One of the key things is to ask them like, hey, is there an influencer that you like? Is there a social media account that you follow? Is there a brand that you want to go with? Is there a vibe? So you're kind of already trying to get to know what are the things that they really like seeing already on their social media, and then how you can support or replicate that as you work with them. Next is you want to polish the brand. What that means is making sure that there is a uniform brand color. So for example, in 2XU and every single thing that you guys see with my company's brand is all aligned to the 3 colors that we have. And anything else we kind of are experimenting or jumping into it, but we have those brand colors. We also have font that we like using, that we prefer using, and we have a pretty good brand voice of a mix of kind of curiosity, playfulness, but also keeping people informed of what are things that they need to know. So a little bit of an educator. So we have that brand voice at every single post that we do. You know that it is 2XU because of those different elements. So depending on your client, depending on who they are and what they do, it's important that you polish and establish what that brand looks like, and making sure that, of course, moving forward, it is the same thing over and over again, so people can associate those colors, that tone, that font basically with that brand. It's also making sure that you have all of the assets that they have, their logos, what their logo looks like in white if it's on a dark background, getting any graphics that they like. So for example, within 2XU, we have a pretty nifty graphic of an EA that we like using for different things that our amazing graphic artists made. So for us at different points, we will put that EA kind of mascot in a way where for different posts of ours, you'll know like, oh, that's the 2XU EA, person basically. Next, and I want to make sure that this is kind of a cemented thing, is you want to track your numbers. And just like how in the beginning you wanted to look at your client's current numbers before you started, you want to track your own numbers. What I mean by this is for every single time that you make a change, does it go up, does it go down? Then it makes it easier for you to go back to the baseline because you did the audit earlier. You want to track the numbers that matter to you as a creative as well. Where, if you try this kind of graphic on, do people like it? If you try this kind of caption, do people just not look at the post anyway? So it's making sure that you are tracking your numbers of the different changes that you do as you start working with your client. That way you can be more analytical when it comes to the results of what it is that you do. Next is looking at the competitors for the client. What I mean by this is a lot of the time they probably have other businesses that are very similar than theirs. It might be a different niche, might be kind of a slightly different service, but it's important to look at the current competitors so you can see how well they're doing, who their audience is, and getting ideas also on the kind of content that works and what content doesn't work. So it gives you a pretty good kind of bird's eye view on the market. What are the things that the market currently likes and what are the things that the market doesn't really like? Make sure that you have at least 3 different competitors that you're watching out for, quote unquote watching out for, but it really is, again, finding out what are the things that works towards the market and what are the things that doesn't. Next, speaking of the niche, is making sure that you narrow down the niche for your client as best as you can. So for example, for 2XU, I think for the first 3 years, we would just say entrepreneurs, business owners, anyone who's ever started a business before, needs an executive assistant. And recently in the last 2 years, we've been shifting that a lot to saying consultants or coaches, or more specifically, business coaches and business consultants, because we know that those people need support, need assistance, because one, it is their own brand, and two, it's basically that they will have recurring things that they can have their assistant be doing. And one of our very long-term clients are consultants and coaches. So for us, we really narrowed down what kind of niche we wanted to kind of double down on. And since then, our content has been a little bit easier to make and to create and to target towards, just because we use the coaches and consultants verbiage. If you look at all of the other YouTube videos on here, instead of saying why every entrepreneur, I usually say why every coach or consultant need an assistant. It also makes it easier for you to make content, as well as makes it easier for your content to reach the right people. Next is establishing your recurring task. And there's going to be a couple of them. Monthly is you want to make sure that you do a strategy call with your client, create the content calendar, upgrading your own skills, and creating a month ahead. What those different basic steps are. First one is the strategy call with your client is looking at the analytics of the last month and going through what are the goals for this month, what are the things or trends that we want to hit, what are the numbers that we want to go in, and what are the things that we want to double down on planning out the calendar and eventually creating the calendar a month ahead. It is making sure that even if you get sick, if your client gets sick, if nothing happens in the business basically for the next 30 days, there is still going to be content that's going to be produced and posted and put everywhere else. That is the importance of trying to make sure that you're at least a month ahead when it comes to the content side. And of course, you want to constantly be upgrading your skills. Maybe there's an AI tool that'll make your life a little bit easier. Maybe there's a copywriting trick that you can start learning or honing in on. Maybe there are different multimedias that you can dive into and learn a little bit on, just because you always want to keep your own skills fresh. You want to keep learning, you want to keep growing in one way or the other. Then on the weekly side is, of course, you want to have weekly analytics. This is more for the micro changes that you might make throughout the week in response to maybe the analytics from last week. So for us in 2XU, we have a really good weekly analytics with our amazing social media manager, where for him, he is able to track, like, hey, can we add this part of the post? Can we add this, and see in real time rather than waiting a month later how those different changes affect the day-to-day of the engagement, as well as the impressions that we get. And also, more importantly, if we made like a significant change, how does that look like moving forward? Next is you want to make sure that you engage on other accounts at least weekly. What I mean by this is looking or having a list, and we do have a list of different accounts that we want to engage on as our brand to these people, so then we are bumped up and seen on these pages, on these influencers basically. So for example, for my own brand, we do have a list of people that we engage with, that we make sure that we touch base on with their posts at least once a week. This is again to make sure that we're kind of a little bit top of mind for different people, and also it's a really good way to give value. And of course, watch for trends or any changes on the algorithm as well. For example, a few weeks ago for Instagram, they changed the cover size from 9:16 to 3:4, if I remember right. And a lot of people were very shocked by that. But if you were someone who knows that you should just check on trends, check on algorithm changes, check on the aesthetic changes that an app makes, then you're a little bit more up to date rather than if you had no idea what was happening. And of course, daily, you want to double check the posts to make sure that they are the right posts that came out, and tagging whoever needs to be tagged as needed. You want to respond to engagement, any comments, any messages within 24 hours on the page. And of course, share the posts into stories depending on what platform you guys are using, Instagram, Facebook. You just make sure that, hey, as you see the post come out, you just share that to your stories for just a little bit of higher visibility. Once you've established those, you want to then create your systems, which is basically your standard operating procedures, which is kind of just your checklist. Every single time that you create a post, a copy, a graphic, you have a way to know that, oh, I didn't add the logo here. Oh, I didn't double check the colors. Oh, I wasn't able to post it on the right platform because I wasn't able to check. Creating your standard procedure is your checklist to make sure that you do the same thing, the same results over and over again, whether you feel great that day or whether that day sucks. You're able to create that same result because you've written down how to do things and how to replicate it over and over. And finally, just update your portfolio. And this is a key thing, especially if you are someone who is managing different clients, or that you are constantly working on yourself. Maybe you're starting your own social media agency, whatever that looks like, is you have an up-to-date portfolio of the things that you've created and the results that you've created. So not just the posts essentially that you created on this one client's social media, but showing the engagement that you got, showing the results. This is why it's important that you did an audit at the very beginning, is that you could show a little bit of before and after for this client's numbers since they started working with you. So just kind of making sure that you document not just your systems, but also documenting your results. So then it's easier for you to pitch yourself to the next client. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit the thumbs up button right there. Comment below if you have any questions on being a social media VA. And if you still haven't yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any of the videos every Sunday and Thursday on how to work from home and how to have a business from home, which you guys can check out those two playlists right here and the latest video right here. Hope you guys have an amazing day, and remember that small steps matters, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!